a crazy loophole where you just do.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm live or not. I think I'm live. I think my computer is just okay, right. I'm not sure what's going on here. I don't know if it's my computer. I'm just trying to check if... Okay, right. I think... So sorry. Why does this always happen to me? Now it's telling me that I'm live, but before I can't even, so I'm looking on my phone and I can see your chats on my phone, but I can't see it on my computer. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm actually live and it's working. Okay, so I've just been staring at the computer thinking that nothing has been happening, and apparently I am live. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look on my phone on the chat because for some reason it's just not showing up. YouTube is being a little bit of an enemy of progress, but it's okay. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. So, oh, I can see there's quite a few people. Thank you. Yes, sometimes I like to just wear my headscarf when I'm at home. Yep. Okay. So ignore the first kind of couple of seconds because apparently I've been live all this time and I had no idea. And I was just kind of looking, thinking, what's going on? Okay. So my chats are starting to come back. I don't know what my computer was doing, but hey, oh my gosh, 14 of you are here already. Is this because I'm talking about saving money? Is that why you guys are all here? But thank you so much for joining me. Great. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. So today we're going to talk about saving money. So guys, bring your questions. Yeah, I've got 2 more lives left. Next week, we're talking about investing. This week is all about saving money. So if you've got any burning questions, please do ask me. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Let me know. I'll definitely try and help out. So I want to talk about saving money and particularly maybe what some of the areas that I maybe see people are struggling with. So I did do a poll yesterday that I think like over 90 of you voted, just asking, how much do you actually save in terms of your income? And over 50% of people either save under 25%, and then the other I think it was like 49%. Save over 25% of their income. So it's pretty much a 50-50. And so what I really want to do is help, the people that are maybe struggling with saving money. If you're maybe saving under 25% and that's not what you want to be saving, that's what I'm gonna hopefully help you with. Yeah, I know we're almost at the end of the month as well. I know January also tends to feel like a bit of a long month. It's not it's always a weird one just because obviously it's my birthday in the middle of January, but has it felt long? Let me know. Has January felt long? How are your finances? Because especially if you're working, a lot of people obviously get paid before Christmas or just after Christmas. And by the time they get paid again, it's not till the end of January. So what tends to happen is you've now got 5 weeks instead of 4 weeks. And so the month just kind of feels a bit longer. I think some people even have 6 weeks as well. So let me know, how are you feeling? We got 8 days left until the end of January. How are you feeling? Are you counting down payday? Are you waiting for payday? I feel like the month is never ending. Glad it's almost over. Yeah. I think a lot of us, always feel as if January is a bit long. So payday's the 26th. Yeah. Great. Oh, good question. What do you class as saving? So in terms of saving money, we can go into it. So I class saving. No, do you know what? No one has ever actually asked me this question. What do I class as saving? So this is a very good question. I basically just class saving money as pretty much if I'm able to put money aside for something, I'm pretty much saving money. So I'm basically saving it up for something else. So that's essentially what I'm doing. So I'm basically not spending it at the moment. So I'm not going to spend the money as soon as I get paid, but I'm putting the money aside for something. So it's going to be maybe for a future expense or any financial goals that I have. So that's kind of what I personally count as saving. Everyone will probably have different definitions as well. So it really depends on your personal definition, but that's kind of how I see it. So we can definitely walk through, the struggles of saving, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about saving money, because I think, again, that's something where maybe people don't necessarily understand very much, and maybe that's where they're kind of struggling. So as always, again, if you've got questions, please do let me know. We're probably going to be here for maybe like the next 40-50 minutes, and I can answer any questions, but I'll talk through some of the things that I'm noticing that are maybe stopping some people from saving. And again, obviously, if you've got questions based on that, you can do it. And also, if you do need further support as well, I do have one-to-one coaching as well. So those links are all in the description. I've also got a free training if you haven't seen that as well. Those are in the description if you want to learn more about managing and investing your money as well. So just have a look at my page. But yes, let's get started. So I've got a question already about what percentage on your excess money after bills would you save a month? So this is a good question, because this basically leads me to why I feel some people maybe make mistakes when it comes to actually saving money. So a common thing that I tend to see is that there are many people, and this could be you, by the way, like, because this used to be me, to be honest. Like, I'm not perfect, as most of you will know if you've seen my videos. I'm definitely not perfect. But the one thing I tend to see is that many people don't actually understand what they're saving for. And everyone is going to be saving for different things. And so I'll give you an example, because my clients, when they first would work with me, they tell me that they'd feel guilty about spending because they feel like they need to save money. But then I'd ask them, okay, but how much are you supposed to be saving? And then they don't know, because they'll look at me with blank faces, because they don't actually realize, or they haven't actually understood how much they should be saving. And the reason why they haven't understood how much they should be saving is because they don't know what they should be saving for. And so they haven't done the work in terms of understanding what they actually want to save for. Because once you know what you want to save for, that will help you understand, okay, well, how much should I be saving, either per week or per month or per quarter, whatever it is. But it will allow you to understand how much you should actually be saving. And that's when you'll truly be able to know whether you're kind of either like overspending, or maybe there are some areas that you actually want to evaluate a bit more. Or you may now start to think, okay, maybe I need to try and make more money so that I can reach that saving goal. But with many people, I find that the reason why they don't know how much they need to save is because they haven't actually gone through what they need to save for. So I give you an example. So in my case, if I look at my, let's go to my journey back when I was paying off my debt. So I was saving money to pay off my debt, and then I was saving money to have an emergency fund. And so I knew exactly, in terms of when I was paying off my debt, I already had a timeline in terms of when I was going to pay off my debt. So I said to myself, I want to have paid off my debt by this month. So for me, I think it was by the middle of 2020. I had a month, I think it was by May of 2020, I wanted to pay it off. And so at that point, I think maybe it was in 2019 that I set that. And so that helped me work backwards, where I now said, okay, well, this is when I want to pay off my debt. How much do I need to be saving to now overpay on my debt? What does that mean? Based on where I'm at now and where I want to go, how much do I need to be putting aside each month in order for me to reach that goal? What many people don't do is they don't do that first bit. They just kind of think that they have to be saving money, but they don't know what they're saving for, and they don't know how much they should be saving. You will be able to know whether you maybe have to work on your spending or work on something else with your income when you actually have your savings goals. So if I now know that, okay, within the next 18 months, I need to be saving about 500 a month to go towards my debt. Well, then I know, okay, well, every month 500 needs to go out of my account into my savings. So I already know that. It's the same thing with sinking funds as well. So I don't know if you've seen, I did a video Friday on sinking funds, because again, that's some questions I got around, how, like, can you do a video on sinking funds? Like, again, when it comes to sinking funds, you need to understand, okay, well, how much do I actually want to put aside for that particular expense? So definitely check that video out. It'll be like on my channel. But once you understand how much you need for that particular expense, that will help you understand, okay, well, this is how much I need to be putting aside every month or every quarter, whatever it is, but you understand how much you need to be putting aside. And so you won't have the problem of thinking or feeling so guilty when it comes to your spending, because you already know how much you should be setting aside. Like for me, like I never feel guilty about spending. I never feel guilty. And the reason being is because I already know how much I should be putting aside each month. So I already know how much I should be putting into my savings. And so because of that, I don't feel guilty with spending because the money is there to be spent. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense, but if not, let me know. I have credit card debt. Should I pay off first before saving? This will really depend on your personal circumstances. It's also going to depend on your risk tolerance as well. So I will never tell people like, oh, you should just be paying off your debt or you should be saving. So for example, in my case, what I did is I saved like a mini emergency fund. So I think I saved like £500, which is maybe like $700. I put that aside because I didn't want to have to dip. If anything happened, like let's say like I had to fix my car or anything, I didn't want to have to then go back into debt. So I took some cash aside and had that as my savings and said, okay, well, this is going to be a mini emergency fund. Another thing I did as well, which again, I think people don't understand the power of sinking funds. I didn't want to talk about that until later. But another thing I did was that I made sure that I started to put money aside as well for expenses I knew were going to come up and that I would need to pay for. Because a big mistake I made, which is probably why it took me so long for me to save my first 1,000, it took me like more than 6 months. And the reason being is because I had expenses coming up and I would then have to keep dipping into my savings. And essentially it meant that I wasn't actually saving money. The same thing could happen to your debt. If you don't maybe have cash for things that you need to pay for. So for example, in my case, I had car insurance that came up. I had MOT. So like, the road coverage, all of that, fixing the car. I had all of that stuff come up. And so when I was trying to save money so that I can have that, so I can have some cash and start overpaying on my debt, those expenses just kept cropping up and I would have to pay for it. And so I kept having to dip back into it. And so again, it's going to depend on your personal circumstances. But for me, when I basically did it, I made sure to have money, not only for a mini emergency, but also for expenses I knew that I was going to have to pay for. So again, that's where like sinking funds come in. That's where it can be really useful, because at least you know that the rest of the money that you save to overpay on your debt, it's just going to go towards the debt. And so when I sorted that out, again, it took me like 6 months to actually realize what I was doing. But once I realized that, it became a lot more seamless because I already had money set aside for those expenses. And so the rest of the money, and I had my mini emergency fund, so the rest of the money literally could just be put towards the car, my car debt. Yeah, my car debt, if that makes sense. I actually managed to save some money this paycheck. I'm hoping to save $100 before my next paycheck. Oh, great, Matthew. That's great to hear. Yeah, I think for me, it can really be hard the first time when you try to save money, especially if you've not done it before, or if you've maybe saved money and then you've realized that you have to now dip into those savings. That can be the really difficult bit. And so that's why I really I don't stress about sinking funds, but I think sinking funds can be really, really helpful because it stops you from actually dipping into your savings, particularly if you're maybe either saving to pay off debt or maybe you're saving up for a house or anything like that. It stops you from then, dipping into that, because then otherwise what ends up happening is you feel discouraged. Like I would feel like I'd say, oh yeah, no, I'm saving money, but then I have to keep dipping into it and pay for an expense. And I would feel like really upset about it because I was like, well, am I actually saving money? Like, what's the point? So for me, I think if you're able to kind of understand how sinking funds can work, and if you can have if you want to have like a mini emergency fund, again, that's totally up to you. But once you understand how that works, that's when you start actually saving the money, it becomes a lot easier. At least it did for me. I recommend paying off that first and you'll have more money. Yeah, so in terms of like the debt itself, so if you want to save up for a mini emergency fund, that's personally what I did. And then everything else, I attacked the debt. Particularly, I would say with credit card debt, it's depending on the credit card, most likely it's probably going to have quite a high interest rate. So personally for me, I would try to pay it off as soon as possible, but I would have also had some cash to make sure that I don't end up dipping back into the credit card debt. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, just let me know, because I know sometimes I talk I sound like I'm talking nonsense. So I want to make sure that I talking sense. Between a 3 week pay period. Yeah, and it's also going to depend. That's why I say as well, it's also going to depend on when you get paid, the kind of income you have. Not everyone has, a consistent 9 to 5 job where they get paid every 4 weeks. Some people may be self-employed. Like for now, I'm trying to even get used to that, even self-employed aspect where your money is not very consistent. So you now have to think about, okay, well, based on the money that I'm getting, how much do I now need to be putting aside where I can still reach my financial goals, but also knowing that I don't have a consistent paycheck. You also need to be able to think about, managing that. I try to at least save 20% of my wages. 500 a month is unrealistic for me at this moment. Yeah, so this is another thing as well. So when it comes to saving, I think a lot of us get discouraged because we feel like we need to be saving a certain amount, but if our income doesn't allow it, we then feel really discouraged. And so that's why I don't particularly always kind of like for me, I don't actually give my clients a percentage in terms of how much they should be saving. I don't tell them you should save 25%. I don't tell them you should save 30%. What I do is I say, okay, well, what financial goals do you have? So for many of them, they say they're trying to save up for a house. A couple of them, they may save up for an emergency fund, or they already have like a small emergency fund, but they want to build on it. I have like a couple that maybe want to save up for holidays, and maybe a car as well. And so based on that, what I will then do is say, okay, well, based on how much this total is, what does that mean per month or per week or per quarter, depending on what you get paid? How much are you essentially going to need to save? So we don't do percentages. We do your financial goals. How much do you now need to be saving? And if it gets to a point where it looks like actually, and again, this is why budget is so important. Like people look at me like I'm crazy when I talk about budgeting, but this is why it's important, because your budget will be able to tell you realistically how much you can actually save. Because if you're trying to save 500 a month, but your budget is not, in terms of your budget, the level of income and your spending isn't necessarily matching up to that, well, there are two things then you can do. You can either think about, okay, well, maybe there's some things that I can reduce in my budget. So maybe I can think about, looking at my spending habits, particularly if you feel like you overspend in certain areas. Or if that's not, if that's all okay, if you know your spending habits and they're pretty much all good, that's when you can now start to think about, well, either I may need to change my financial goals. So maybe I need to expand my timeline, or I think about maybe making more money. So I still have the same timeline, but I essentially am making more money so that I can save that amount. So there are different scenarios that you can use. And I think people just kind of get discouraged where they feel like they have to be saving, like 50%. Like even before, the first time I realized how much of my income I actually saved was because I did a video on it. And I had no idea I was saving 70% of my income. I didn't even know. I had no idea. It's just because I had a video idea and I was like, hey, let's just like look at how much I'm actually saving. But I had no idea because I didn't necessarily look, I didn't have like a goal in terms of my percentage. My goal was, I want to put this money because I'm saving up for a wedding, I'm saving up for an emergency fund, I'm saving up to invest. That's where my head was. Whereas I think some of us maybe get so fixated and say, oh, I need to be saving 25% of my income. But again, what's that for? If you know what it's for, then fine. But for a lot of us, if we don't actually know what it's for, then we get discouraged when we maybe can't actually save that amount. And so it's really important to really focus on, okay, what exactly are your goals? What does that mean in numbers? And then from there, it's a bit easier for you to evaluate, because again, you can either think about increasing your income, you can think about looking at your spending habits. You use that budget to basically help you evaluate it. So that's kind of how I do it. Should all debts be paid off before investing or saving? Again, this is going to depend on the debts. It's going to depend on your risk tolerance. Personally, for me, and I will talk about this in the investing live next week. Personally, for me, a mistake I see are people maybe investing too soon. And what I mean by that is you don't have any cash. So you don't have any reserves, because it's really important to know. And this is, and again, this is like, I always have to deep dive. Like, there's going to be certain things that you save for, and there's going to be certain things that you invest for. Whenever I'm thinking about investing, it's pretty much in the long term. That is literally what long term is investing. Anything short term is probably going to be saving. So depending again on your goals, that will depend on what you save for and what you actually invest for. So again, that's why it's really clear to get, to understand your goals. And again, we're still in January, so hopefully you guys have done your goals, but not just your 2022 goals, but maybe even your long-term goals. Because what I do is I always make my clients focus on the big picture and say, okay, in terms of investing, that's probably going to be for your financial independence and retirement stuff. But anything, relatively short term, if you're saving up for a car, holidays, house, whatever it is, that's probably going to be in the short term. And so you're probably going to end up saving money for that versus investing. But like, you need to be able to understand in terms of your goals, where does everything sit? And then you can think about, okay, well, how much am I going to be investing versus how much am I going to be saving? So again, it's all about understanding your goals and the timeline as well. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, glad it's good advice. I'm a college student, so I'm learning, and my grandparents have been drilling it in my head. I need to say, yeah, that's great to hear, and especially if you're a college student as well. It's just that's really amazing to hear, and the fact that you're now already making this difference. I honestly wish I was at that point as well in college. I was not very good with my money at all. I just spent everything. So the fact that you're in college, honestly, well done. What I would say is, again, I'll talk about this next week, but there is also there are things that we definitely want to save for, but there are also things that we want to invest for. So it's just about thinking about the two. So every time, like a lot of the times, you guys will hear me saying saving and investments, because it's not just one or the other. Like, particularly at a certain point, you will probably want to start thinking about, yes, savings, but there's probably going to be a point in time where you now want to think about investing as well. So again, I'll talk about that in more detail next week. How do you make a sinking fund for social events like friends' birthdays? I try to stick to an amount, but when the events and birthdays come up, there's always extra expenses. Again, this is really going to depend. So for me, I remember one of my clients, I think she basically has a sinking fund for eating out. So it's not just for normal going out to like eat like normally that you would put on your budget, but she knows that sometimes there may be certain events where she's now going to end up going out and will probably spend more money than usual compared to maybe when she goes to eat out, like, during the month. And so what she does is she now sets aside money. And so what you could do is you could potentially maybe look at the past events that you've gone to and say, okay, well, on average, how much was I usually spending? Like, how much have I been spending? And if you then try to figure out, okay, well, based on how much I was spending, how many times am I probably going to end up going out? And it doesn't, I think everyone kind of gets fixated on, it has to be this number. It needs to be this amount. If I don't know how many times I'm going to be going somewhere, then I can't write it down. But you can adapt, you can change. I change my sinking funds all the time. Like, my clothes sinking fund, I will usually change that as well, depending on what I want to buy. If I realize, okay, if I want a new winter jacket, well, then I need to figure out, okay, well, how much is that probably going to cost? And if I don't feel like I have enough in my clothes sinking fund, well, then I will adapt it. And I'll say, okay, well, maybe I need to increase it. So you can change it. It doesn't have to be so set in stone. But that's essentially what I'd be doing. I'd literally just be thinking, okay, well, how much is it going to cost? Maybe either, the next 3 months, 6 months, or even a year. If you want to do a year, you can do a year. And then you can now start thinking about, well, how much do I need to now be setting aside every month? And so that will help you, hopefully, when it now comes to these events, because now you actually have the money set aside for it, and you don't have to now go dipping into your paycheck or dipping into other savings. So that's, like, again, one thing, like I mentioned in my video, like one of my clients, she has a sinking fund for concerts. she's ready. She didn't even know when she'll be going on concerts because of the pandemic, but she had money ready set aside. And then like one of her favorite artists was like coming to the UK, and she was like, yeah, I'm going to that concert. So it meant that she didn't have to now again go into the income or like the paycheck, because she already had money set aside. And so she could again still enjoy it. She can enjoy the concert. She has money set aside for it, but it wasn't at a detriment to her other savings and investments. So it wasn't at a detriment to her other financial goals. So that's again what you really want to think about. I was going to ask you about the difference in income, because I pick up shifts and make me more money, and it's easier to save the more I've made. Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, people have like if you have a difference in income, and let's say you again, you know, sometimes you get paid, I don't know, like 1,500, maybe sometimes you get paid 1,000. Again, all you want to be thinking is, this is why I always think about the long term as well, because I might say that, okay, within the year, I want to have saved this amount for this particular thing. And so what that means is, even if I might not save the same amount every single month, I at least know how much I need to be saving every month. So even if my income fluctuates, if I have an increased income, well, then I can put more money into my savings, because I know that the next month I may not reach those savings, or I may not have enough, or my income may not be high enough for me to actually save the same amount. So I may increase my savings for that month where I had a high amount, and then I may decrease it when I have a lower amount. I hope that makes sense. So again, it will probably fluctuate, but again, like as long as you kind of have the end goal and you understand, okay, well, this is the total amount that I want to save for, it can fluctuate. It doesn't have to be like so consistent. Like even at the point that I'm at now, our savings and investments aren't that consistent, just because my income has completely fluctuated, because obviously I don't work a 9 to 5 job now, so we don't have that consistent paycheck that we used to have. And so there may be a couple of months where we don't save and invest any money at all, but then there are probably going to be a couple of months where if I make even more money, well, then I can what's that word, I can almost compensate. I can compensate for the past couple of months. So like now, like between December and January, I already know that we're not going to be able to save and invest as much, because of like the way my income has changed. Whereas I know from like, and my husband's income has changed as well, but I know from like after February time that it's going to stabilize a little bit more, or I'm already expecting a bit more money then. So then we can then say, okay, well, then we're going to be able to save and invest a bit more money then. So it can fluctuate, and that's okay. And actually, I'm kind of happy that this has happened, because now I can kind of see you guys from the side. Like if you guys are self-employed and you've been like, what's happening with money? Like at least I'm at that point as well. So I kind of understand it. Maybe not to the full extent, because obviously my husband still has his 9 to 5 job, but at least I can now kind of see how you guys can navigate and test the waters with that. Yes, of course, your budget will help. Yes, exactly. Your budget is definitely gonna help. Again, the budget's there. The budget is there for you to use it as a tool, not for it to kind of tell you what to do, because you don't tell your budget what to do. No, your budget doesn't tell you what to do. You tell your budget what to do. Yeah, glad I'm giving good advice. I'm saving up for a mortgage and would like to put down at least 20%, which for the house I will need to be about 40 to 50K. How do I stay motivated during the 3 to 4 years it's going to take? Daunting. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like in terms of the timing, for me, I think it's all about just kind of understanding your why. So even like one of my clients, she also had this worry. She was scared that she wasn't gonna be motivated. The one thing I would say though is treat those savings like another bill. That is literally what I do. So for me, it's as if I pay my rent, or I pay, like if you pay your mortgage, you pay your rent, you pay your utility bills. Your money is just got a direct debit, and you don't even see it. You already know that you've just had to put money aside for it. So, and that's what I do. I literally will, and especially when I was paying off my debt, I literally treated it as a bill. So all I knew is that as well as my rent and my other bills, my other bill was like a debt payoff was just going to go straight into the car. I didn't even see it. I mean, I kind of did see it, because I didn't I didn't necessarily do like a standing order. I could have, but I'm one of those people who likes to move the money around. So for me, I didn't mind seeing the money, but if you feel like you're gonna have like a lack of motivation, I would probably just set up standing order. Standing order, certain amount every single month, just like a bill. And even you could do it. What I would do, what I used to do is the same day that all my bills got paid is when the money would just get taken out, or is when I would move the money essentially. So personally, if it was me, I would, if I didn't want to move it physically, because not everyone is like me, I understand that. But if it was me, I would set up a standing order, and let's say all of your bills come out the first month, the first day of the month, that money comes out automatically like a bill. So it's pretty much like you paying your mortgage, or paying your rent, or paying any other utility bills. How do you stop yourself spending sinking funds? I can make pots, but I find I dip into them. I need to protect myself from that. That means that you probably need to evaluate your spending, because I don't really go into my sinking funds because I have money to spend. So it may be that you're putting so much money into your sinking funds that you're not leaving yourself to spend any money. And for me, that's not what I want to do, because if not, you will end up spending all your sinking funds, and then you're going to be like, well, what's the point in me having sinking funds? I may as well spend it. And so I would evaluate that and see, are you actually leaving yourself enough money to spend during the month? And again, this is where budgeting becomes quite important, where I know some of you guys don't like me using the word budget, but it's actually, this is why it's useful though, because for me, it's then telling you, okay, well, the amount that you're setting aside to spend might not be enough, and it could, and you may not even be overspending. Like you'll probably know if you're overspending, but if you feel like you've completely restricted yourself, and this is a mistake I tend to see some people doing, is that they will try and save so much money and not leave any money to spend, but then they end up overspending the money because they've restricted themselves so much. And so that's why whenever I do a budget, it's for me to evaluate my spending. There's probably going to be areas where, you probably want to work on in terms of, that you're overspending. Again, that's going to be something separate. But what you want to be evaluating is actually there may be some expenses where you just need to increase in your budget. Like I've used an example of our petrol. There was like months where the petrol just like, I put the budget, and then the petrol we just overspend on it's not that we overspend on the budget, but like we would never meet the petrol budget because petrol prices just kept increasing. And so that meant that every month I was now saying, okay, well, we're going to have to increase the budget for petrol because clearly it's not changing. And so we just need to match that. Again, what many people are doing is they'll set the budget, and then they'll be spending here, and they'll continue to spend to set the budget here whilst they're still spending here. And so you're not actually evaluating your spending. So that's really what you really want to do. Once you evaluate your spending, that will allow you to actually spend the money, and you'll probably realize that you end up leaving the sinking funds alone, because you've actually, you've got more of a realistic budget when it comes to your spending. So I hope that makes sense. Basing it on the average. And impulse, exactly. Again, one of my clients, she has money set aside for impulse purchases. Just like I literally told her, and I was like, if you feel like you may impulse, because all of us do it, all of us do it, like, all of us do it. I used to impulse on clothes. Hence why I have a clothes sinking fund, because I know I use the impulse. I don't actually impulse on clothes anymore. I don't really do it anymore at all, because I think I've worked on my mindset around that. But I literally said, just to start off, have an impulse fund, because she used to struggle with like Amazon purchases. Weirdly enough, she has stopped even buying Amazon stuff. Like that's completely stopped. But when I first spoke to her, I said, well, have a fund for it, so it doesn't feel like, even if you are impulse spending, you won't feel bad, and you won't have to dip into your savings if you have a fund for it. But what you'll find is actually, if you start to do work like on the mindset more about your spending and understanding why you're impulse spending, you'll probably find that you don't actually need the impulse fund, because she doesn't actually need it anymore, because she doesn't spend, you know, on Amazon all the time anymore. She, like, if she needs to, she will already have put money aside for it, and then that's it. So it depends, like, where you're currently at. But that's why I always say, like, try to treat the cause, not the symptom. Because once you treat the cause, you'll realize that actually the problem you had with impulse spending is something completely different. Another question, but no, impulse funds. I think I used to have an impulse. Well, I used to just, like, where I would impulse, I would just create a sinking fund for it. So, like, I had one for clothes. I didn't necessarily have one for eating out. I think that's just because I don't tend to eat out that often anyway. But yeah, it again really depends on your own behaviors. Starling Bank is really good. Yeah. Starling Bank. If you're in the UK, Starling Bank, Monzo is a good one as well. I use Monzo, so whenever you see my budget videos and you see, like some of the, I sometimes show my pots, it's from Monzo. So I will put that in the description as well, because if you use my link, we also get £5 off. Like, both of us get £5. So if you want to use that, of course you can. What really helps me is reminding yourself about your why and your goals every time you think of an impulse buy. Every night I look at my goals and why I'm saving. Exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Once you realize why you're saving, and once you realize what you actually want, you will be surprised at how much impulse spending you genuinely do. Because all of my clients, they used to impulse spend, but once they now understand what they're actually saving and investing for, and again, that's why I say, like, most of you guys, you may not know what you're actually saving for. And I don't mean, oh, I'm just saving up for a house. I don't mean that. What I mean is, what is the reason? Like, how is that actually going to benefit you? Why are you working towards that? Once you've actually done that work, you honestly, like, the impulse spending, it may not completely stop, but you'll be surprised at how much it essentially gets reduced, because you've done that work to understand why you're actually doing this. And it will just help you start to second guess things, or, like, start to rethink things, and just think about, okay, if I'm spending this money, it's not to say that I can't spend my money, but it's to kind of evaluate and say, well, is this actually going to benefit me? Again, if you watched I think it was my second live on budgeting, it's going back to what you value. So if you realize that actually you don't value the stuff that you've been spending, well, you're probably not going to end up spending that. You're probably not going to impulse buy. But because if you've not gone through and understood, okay, what do you value versus what you don't, it may be quite difficult for you to actually stop your impulse purchases. And that's why I always say, like, things like no spend months they can be very useful if you understand your spending habits, but no spend months are not going to help you stop overspending. It's not going to basically cure, like it's not the cure to stop your overspending. So that's why you really want to work on that, because that will basically funnel into everything else. I may be chatting rubbish to you guys. So I hope that makes sense. I really hope that makes sense. Yay! Oh, I was so glad to hear that you like my budget template. I never have spare money. My area is always food shopping. Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about food shopping in my other lives. Again, I will never tell you guys, like, how much you should spend on your food, because again, it's totally up to you. Everyone has different food tolerances. My sister is lactose intolerant, and she also is gluten free. So what she buys is going to be totally different to what I buy. So we're never going to have the same food budget. So you always just kind of have to evaluate and understand, are you actually overspending, or is this basically you just spending money on your food budget? Because again, like, I also had to increase our food budget. I thought we could do, I think I set ours for like 32 a week when I first got married, and realized that 32 a week wasn't enough. So I increased it to 34. And that's how much we've pretty much been spending consistently over the past few months. Actually, we've been slightly doing less sometimes. But again, you just wanna evaluate it. Pots. Yeah, I love my pots, but not everyone likes having pots as well. So if you don't like having pots, as I mentioned in my sinking funds video, what you could do is just have a separate account. Like, for me, as long as it's separate from your spending, it will help. It will probably help, because you're less likely to go into and spend your sinking funds. But as long as you have like a list and you understand exactly how much is going towards each sinking fund, then that's something that you could do. But personally, I use pots just because I like to separate it out and it's a bit easier for me. Budgeting was very painful, but I now know where my money is going. Definitely need a sinking fund though. Something always happens with the car. Yeah, honestly, the car, that I shared this on my Instagram story, but there was one time where my car completely broke down and they told me they had to like take it to a garage. They told me it was going to cost like £200, which is maybe like $300 to $400. And I had no money. I had no savings for that. I had nothing. At that point, I had maxed out my overdraft. I had no money. And I was like, oh, this isn't great. I have no money to spend. And so I essentially had to call my family and my boyfriend, who's my husband at the time, because I genuinely had no money because I didn't have money set aside for like car maintenance or my car breaking down. Didn't have any of that. So yeah, Amazon is an interesting one. I won't go into that into too many details when it comes to Amazon. But yeah, someone mentioned Hyperjar. Is that like Starling? I'm not sure. I've not heard of Hyperjar. Maybe it's in another country. Not sure. I haven't heard of Hyperjar, just particularly in the UK. But obviously, depending on what country you're from, then there's probably going to be like different banking apps that might be different to your normal high street banks. Although some high street banks, maybe they've started to follow the trend and started doing pots. Who knows? My impulse spending was on eBay and Amazon. Yeah. Amazon is always a big one. Sometimes you do hear about the eBay as well. So it's an interesting one. Yeah, I do feel like people struggle with impulse spending, but again, it's for me, it's really going back to your why and understanding why you might also be impulse spending. I use a reloadable card at 1% at one supermarket to do all my shopping. Get a 5% bonus when I top up and use the balance for Christmas shopping and emergencies. Yeah. Everyone's gonna have like different methods in terms of how they spend their money, how they save their money. So you just want to figure out what's good for you. Chase Bank is good and you get 1%. Yeah, I have heard of Chase Bank actually. I've heard about Chase Bank. 1% cash back on your purchases for a year. Yeah. So it's nice to gain a little extra on things. Yeah, that you normally do. Yeah. So for me, I use Monzo for a lot of my spending, but I also have a credit card as well that I use for my general spending. So for me, that works for me because I don't ever pay credit card interest because I have obviously understood now how money works. But I get points as well whenever I actually spend money on that card. So that can go towards things like Amazon, which actually we ended up using when we were furnishing this house. We used quite a lot of my points for that. But also you can get like flight points as well if you wanna do that. From the UK. Okay, so Hyperjar. Yeah, I didn't know Hyperjar was something that we use in the UK. I might need to look at that. But yeah, I've never heard of Hyperjar, I don't think. But yeah, I think the one thing I will say when it comes to spending, and I know some of you guys don't like to hear this, but I will say that a big reason why you may be struggling is because of your mindset. And like a lot of people, they maybe don't believe that that is true, but I will say that a big reason is probably because of your mindset, especially if you have a kind of scarcity mindset. And if you feel like you have this lack, like you don't have enough money or you can never afford things, that could potentially have an impact on how much you're actually saving and whether you overspend or not. So it's really important to also be aware of that in terms of your thinking and your feelings and your behaviors around money, because what you think is going to influence your behaviors, and that will basically either help you to save money or it may help stop you from saving money, and it may cause you to start overspending. Again, it's why I say hi Brown Sugar Spark, evening. But yeah, again, it's why I say that even if you decide that you're going to make so much more money, you may not be able to save that money, because a big reason for that is because you've not actually dealt with your mindset and your behaviors around actually saving money in the first place. So just because you're going to be making an extra 10 to 20K doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to save it. There's so many people that make big bucks, like I'm talking six figures, and they still struggle to save money. Majority of people in the UK and US struggle to save money. Big reason for that is because of their mindset and their behaviors. Because let's be real, like, you know, if really and truly, like, most of us know how to save money. Like, most of, like, you wouldn't even need to Google it. Like, most of us know how to save money. The problem is that we haven't really worked on our mindset and behaviors, and that's now going to impact how much we're actually able to save, or in this case, invest. Because even with me, I've never naturally been a saver, never used to save money in my life. I did not have any savings, as many of you will know. And it also took me about 6 months just for me to start consistently saving money properly, because I hadn't actually necessarily built the habit and actually understood my own mindset around saving. So that's why sometimes if you maybe try to, like, you know, look at blogs around saving hacks, or maybe sometimes look at videos and like have like look at the like top tips to save money, but if you realize that that still doesn't work, a big reason is probably going to be because of your mindset. That's something you wanna work on. And it may be like you not actually prioritizing like what you actually want, and again what you actually values as well, what you actually value as well. So that's why you may have like savings here and there, but then you haven't really gone through, okay, well, what actually am I saving for? What do I actually want? What does this mean for me? Because again, why on earth would I start saving just for the sake of saving? And I feel like that's what the government tends to miss out. Like, they'll tell you to save, but it's like they won't tell you what to save for. And in fact, a lot of these governments, they don't even want you to save money. They want you to spend the money because that's going to help grow the economy. But like, even with things like that, if you don't really understand, you know, why should I save? Then why would you? Why on earth? Like, why would I save money just for the sake of it? I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. But for me, the reason why I have savings is because I know they have a job for me, and I know why I've saved that money. So for me, it's a lot easier for me to save money because I've gone through that. Yeah, you've got to change your mindset and how you can save money, especially if you are naturally not a saver like me. So like, my husband is naturally a saver. He's just kind of always saved money. He's never really had a problem with saving money. Whereas for me, on the other hand, I was naturally a spender. I feel like I get that from my mum. But what it means is that I had to unlearn a lot of things, and I really had to challenge myself and tell myself, well, actually, no, I can save money. Even though, yes, I spend money, I can also save money. And I think that's why, for me, I think it's actually quite good, because I'm coming from the point where I have also been living paycheck to paycheck and I never used to save money. And so I think I kind of want to show you guys that if I can do that, coming from someone who's naturally a spender, if I'm able to do that, and if you are naturally a spender, well, then you can also unlearn those things too. And you can also start to save money. It's not just the savers out here. The spenders can also be saving money, like me. I used to be that. So hopefully that makes a difference. Yes, you can't fix an issue. Yeah, with the same mindset that created it. Yeah, exactly. So again, you know, if you have this kind of scarcity feeling of lack, like, you know, I don't want to budget. It's just too hard. It's just too difficult. I don't see the point, or it's boring. Anything like that, that could have an impact on how you essentially start saving money. Because what you'll do is you'll shut down and you'll just get discouraged, and then you don't end up saving your money. And so even if you then get the promotion or you start the side hustle, like I remember I had one person come to me and she said she was still unable to save money. She was still living paycheck to paycheck, even though she had a full-time job and she also had a side hustle as well. So she was still struggling. Big reason for that was because of her mindset and how she viewed saving money and budgeting and investing money and all of that stuff. A lot of it happens from here. So if you have that problem, that's really what you want to work on, because I've realized that, you know, the saving hacks, the paying off the debt hacks, all of that will only take you so far if you haven't understood what's actually happening up here. If you've not taken the time to really unlearn that, it's quite difficult for you now to implement the strategies. Because don't get me wrong, the saving hacks are very, very useful. But they're useful once you've actually understood how you can unlearn certain things and how you can actually build habits. Once you build those habits and once you actually understand the concept of money and saving money, that's when you now want to implement those hacks, because that's when you're like, okay, well, now I know what I'm doing, I can use those hacks to save even more money. And so that's what I did. That's what I basically, every woman that I've worked with, I always have to like challenge them on their mindset and work on that, because I'm literally like, we need to work on that first before we even start telling you to even have a budget, because there's no point. Because if you have the same mindset, if I come and give you a budget and say start budgeting your money, you're going to be in the same position as before, right? You're still going to be in the same position. You're still going to feel like budgeting isn't something that you should be doing, or you still might feel like budgeting is restricting you, or you still might feel like I can't save money on my current income. You're still going to have these thoughts. So what you need to do is deal with those thoughts first, deal with those behaviors. And so once you've dealt with that, it's now easier for you to say, okay, now that you've done that, this is how you can now start to save a bit more money. These are the kind of hacks that you can do. These are the tips that you can do. Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, totally agree. All mindset. 4 years ago, I had 800 per month spare. No idea where all of that went. You and me both, Ross. You and me both. Yeah. When I realized that I had like 500 just that I could have been putting towards something, I was like, oh, well, it's interesting. It's interesting because even though like, and it's interesting because I had increased my income because I got a new job, but I was still essentially living paycheck to paycheck. So no matter what I did, it didn't make a difference because I still wasn't saving money. Yeah, years later, I'm on top of it now. Yeah, hard lessons. Yeah, exactly. But as long as you know that you're on top of it now, you know, there's no best time like the present. As I will say, you know, yesterday was the best time to start something, but today is the second best time. Mindset never figured in my mind all this time I've been trying to save. Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably the biggest reasons why a lot of us maybe struggle to save money, because we've not actually dealt with what is going on. What's our beliefs around not just saving money, but money in general. So it's important. Yeah, now my mindset has changed. I'm doing 252-week challenges on top of saving. Amazing. Yeah, as long as you know, like these things will help. Exactly. And that's what I mean. Like, even with, if you decide to do a no spend month, like if that's something that's great for you, I say that it's great for you if you already understand the concept of saving, and if you're just kind of using it as just like a fun challenge to do. Whereas many people, they struggle with like the overspending and the saving, and then they think that the no spend month is going to help them overcome it. It's not going to help you overcome it. Like, because what will probably happen is you try and do the no spend month, and then the next month you felt like you were so restricted, and then you basically go back to, in fact, you go 2 steps backwards, because what you've now done is you've essentially said to me, you've basically put yourself on a strict diet. It's like how I like to say it. You put yourself on a strict diet, and now you're trying to go back to the beginning, or you just end up binging on everything, and then you end up spending even more money and not being able to save money. So when it comes to things like, you know, no spend months or all of these challenges, you want to make sure that you're so clear on your spending habits, and you're using those challenges as something that's that you can enjoy doing and that's fun, not that it's going to help you cure your overspending or not being able to save money. So that's kind of like the difference that I hope you guys can like understand. So that's why I always say, like, make sure you know, how do you feel about saving money? How do you actually feel about investing or budgeting or any of those things? Make sure you understand how you feel about it, because that's going to help you now think about, okay, well, how do I implement certain things? That's when the strategy can come, and that's when my YouTube videos can come in as well. But I think many of you guys maybe miss the fact that you haven't worked on everything here. And so if you now start watching these YouTube videos and, you know, they're telling you, pay yourself first, which is what I will tell you, and, you know, maybe have separate accounts. Some of it may still not work because you've not actually thought about, okay, well, how is this going to impact my life? How is this going to impact my own thoughts? Once you've been able to figure that out, those hacks are going to be so useful, because that's when you can now start to do the strategies and the challenges and any of that stuff. That's when it becomes really fun. So I hope that makes sense. And in terms of like sinking funds, the only other thing that I wanted to say, because I'm probably going to go soon, but the only thing that I wanted to say is just know the difference between expected and unexpected expenses, because I see that being a problem for some people. But like really understanding the difference between a sinking fund and like an emergency fund, because those are two different things. Like sinking funds, I tend to see them as like pretty much expected expenses that I want to save up for over time. Emergency funds are for unexpected expenses. So things that I don't expect to happen, I have an emergency fund for as well. So it's good to know the difference, because some people, I think they end up thinking that maybe their emergency fund is a sinking fund. It's not. It shouldn't be anyway. They should be two different things. And so the other thing I also wanted to mention is that just remember that saving money is definitely a great foundation and is amazing. And that's why I tend to talk about it quite often, because it allows you to pay off debt. It allows you to pay, to save up for your financial goals. But there's going to come to a point, which will lead me to next week's live, but there's going to come to a point where you also want to start actually building that wealth, because saving and the budgeting is all about controlling. And again, I mentioned this in my training as well. It's linked in my description if you wanna check it out. But saving and budgeting is all about controlling that money. You also want to think about how you can actually grow that money, whether that be through, if you want to start a business, side hustle, whatever, but also through investing as well, because you want to be able to start making your money work for you. So next week, I'm going to talk about investing. So I hope you guys join me here. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it here now. I really hope this was useful for you guys. As always, this is something that I deep dive my one-to-one coaching program as well. So if you do feel like you need support, I'm here for you. You can book a call with me. But if not, next week is going to be our last live. So I will put the link in the chat as well if you wanna book a call or find out more about my coaching program. But as well, next week we're going to talk about investing. Hope you're with me with investing. I really enjoyed this live as well. Yes, next week will be all about investing, and it's going to be my last live for a while. So I hope you join me there. But anyways, guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. We're now going to eat some dinner. And make sure you follow me on Instagram as well, because people always ask me, because on Instagram, I basically talk about my food budget and I show you guys how much we actually end up spending like each week on food. And people are always asking like, how am I spending this? So I actually showed you one of my meals today in terms of like how much we ended up spending in the week and what I've been able to make with it. So definitely make sure you follow me on Instagram. I will put my Instagram handle, it's literally my name, Rania Spain. So make sure you do follow me on there. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you on Tuesday. Budget update video. I'm filming that tomorrow, so it should be out on Tuesday. So yeah, it was nice seeing you guys, and have a good evening. See you later. Bye.